Hey guys. So it's been a long time since I've done stuff like podcasting or periscoping or anything like that, and I am determined to get back on the bandwagon. So I thought I would start with, yeah, it's always nice when you see someone actually join in. It's like, oh my god, I'm not just talking to myself. Anyway, I thought I would start with talking about a blog post that I just finished writing the other day, and it's basically about the idea of hiya of being able to edit your own patterns. So I am a tech editor for knitting patterns. Um, and you can always, yay, lots of hellos, I like hellos. You can always hire someone like myself to get help, but if you want to try and look through stuff on your own, either because you're feeling a little bit um, shy, I guess, about putting something out, or you don't feel like you can afford or are ready to invest in getting someone else to look at your work, then there's a few ways that you can go about editing your own work. It's not specifically about the blog post I wrote. It's not specifically about tech editing so much as how to trick your brain into being objective when you're looking at your own work. Anyone who's written anything, hiya, um, like an essay or what have you in school or what have you, knows how tricky it is to um, read through something that you've written and spot the errors, because you see what you think you wrote rather than what's actually on the page. So if you want to check the blog post out, it's at my website, which is www.jamesbartley.co.uk, and the link to that is in my profile. And but basically, I talk about a couple of different things. One is some tricks to change how you are reading your writing, because when you read something you've written, you will read it very quickly. Yes, absolutely. And so I have to admit, when I was writing the blog post, I kind of thought it would be hilarious if there's loads of typos in my blog post about how to find errors in your own writing, right? But it's going to have happened. It's just it's a rule of writing that you will always do it. But the trick is that you can slow down how you hi. You can slow down how you read and actually focus on each of the words that you've written. There's a couple of different ways to do it. So one is to read it backwards, where you literally start with the last word and then work your way back. And that way you don't um, read the sentence as you think it is, but you see the words that are actually there. So that's really good for spotting things like typos or spelling mistakes, where you suddenly recognise that that word isn't what you thought it was going to be when you were reading it. Awesome. um, so another one was to read it out loud. That's because the way that you speak has like a cadence, a rhythm to it, and when you're reading out loud, you will hear yourself speaking if you want, um, and bless you, um, and so when you stop and listen to yourself um, speak, then that's what you're that's what you're going to pick up on what you're saying. So it's obviously totally putting me off, isn't it? Because I can't read and speak at the same time. So I'm sorry, I'm just going to move on. The thing with speaking, you're writing out loud, is that you will catch yourself if you trip up on something, or if it doesn't make sense, or if you sometimes you'll catch spelling errors and stuff, because I'm okay with random admirers. I just have to not get distracted. Um, you sometimes you'll read literally what it says because you're trying to listen to yourself at the same time, and so your brain is kind of trying to do too many things at once, and then you'll catch yourself. But anyway, yeah, reading out loud can be really helpful. Another one is reading with your fingers. It feels a bit silly. All of these can feel a bit silly. Um, but if you actually make yourself follow the words with your fingers as you're reading across, then you don't skip through it again. So it's all about slowing your brain down, checking that you're seeing actually what's on the page and not just what you think is there. The other thing that I talk about, as well as the reading stuff, is some of the math stuff. Now, I'm a nerd and I love maths, so this is like kind of like second nature to me. But as I was thinking about it, I realised it's actually not for everybody really obvious. And the key thing with this is that in maths, there's always more than one way to get an answer, to solve the problem. So if you tend to approach a mathematical question such as how many stitches it should be, or what my gauge is, or any of this stuff, my favourite part, may not be everybody's. If you usually approach this kind of thing in the same way, then you will make the same mistakes. And if you only ever do it one way, then you will open yourself up to the chance that you miss something. Oh yeah, totally, totally, absolutely. If you come back later, you always will have a better chance of spotting something. Well, that's one of the reasons. I hope. Yes. Um, so if you can find another way of doing your maths and checking your numbers, then you make it much more likely that you will find an error if you've got one. Because if you do the mathematics differently, and you come up with the same number, the chances are much higher that you're doing it right. If you could find another way to do it and higher, and it's coming up with a different number, thank you, then that's going to be an indication that something's gone wrong. Now, it might just be that one of your methods you did incorrectly, but it might be that something is not right in the way that you're approaching it, and it's just a really useful kind of idea. And I've wrote up a couple of examples on the blog post. Again, if you're just catching this, the link is in my profile to my blog. There's like a simple maths example that might be a little bit easier to get in your head around, and then there's like a knitting example where hopefully that's a bit more contextually appropriate. You can kind of understand how it applied to your patterns. But the more complex a design you're trying to do, then the more complex the problem you're trying to solve mathematically. And so that's where it can be. You can get quite tied up in it. And that's, I think, sometimes where I think someone like myself is really useful, because I revel in solving a mathematical problem 3 different ways. In fact, I will concede that I do this for fun. When somebody asks me to split the bill at the end of a dinner, for example, I will do it about 3 different ways, just for fun, and also to check that I'm right. And then when people go, so how did you get that number? It's like, well, which version would you like? So yes, the general gist of the post is to slow down and take your time, and that it's worth doing. Um, some of my favorite designers, whose stuff I love, have had errors in their patterns that have driven me bonkers. And um, I think actually going through and editing the pattern yourself is good, because it will make the pattern better. It's good because it will actually train you to kind of think like a reader of a knitting pattern when you're putting it together. Now, it's not always easy to do. You've got to kind of put your designer head and your designer hat for a while and design the pattern and put it all together and all of that, and then layout and then all of this. But then to be able to switch into reading it like an editor, which is like a knitting person reading something for the first time and wanting to make sure that you understand it and that it makes sense, and that you're not just assuming something makes sense because you know what it's supposed to say. So it's a really useful skill to have, and I hope that my little blog post is going to be useful for people, and that maybe this Periscope will have explained something in a way that the blog post didn't. I just thought it'd be a cool little thing to share with you all. So yeah, it was nice to see a few friendly faces. So hi guys, thank you for the various hearts, and I'm going to take the compliments however random and trolley Periscope may now be. And yeah, I will leave it there for now, but hopefully I'll be back on here again when I have some more ideas of things to share. So thanks guys. Yes, it has. My pleasure, guys. Thanks very much. Cool. I'm going to try and work out how to turn this off again now. Bye.